This is unit 5.2, and it's a really important unit. Instead of solving system of equations by graphing, we're solving it via substitution, and substitution is the central idea of the learning of algebra. So the substitution method is a method of solving system of equations. Method of solving system of equations by substituting equations. By substituting, that's a mouthful, substituting equations, I cannot say the word, within one another. So the first step is to solve one equation for x or for y. You get to pick. Doesn't matter which one. Pick an easy one. Then you find out what x equals to, and then you substitute. I cannot say this today. Substitute this expression into the other. So if you solve for x, you sub it into y. If you solve for y, you sub it into x. You'll see what I mean. And then you solve for the variable. And the third step is to substitute your answer into the revised equation from step 1 and solve for the other variable. So let's try it. Right here, I have a system of equation. Both are written into y equals mx plus b, slope-intercept form, right? So the good thing about it is that if it's telling me y equals 4x minus 1, it also tells me y equals 2x minus 5. Isn't that the same as telling me 4x minus 1 equals 2x minus 5? So you're substituting this part into the second equation. Okay, I'm going to call that the first equation and the second equation. You take the y in the first equation, you just dump it into the second equation wherever you see y. And now the rest of it is easy, is to use inverse operation, right? And then now you have, that should be 2x. On this side, minus 1. This gets canceled. You have negative 5. And notice, again, I have my equal sign all lined up here. Okay? And all the terms are lined up nicely together as well. So 2x minus 1, I don't want the minus 1 on this side. So I add 1 on both sides. I have 2x equals negative 4. Now if I divide 2 on each side, I have my final answer, x equals negative 2. Now, if x equals negative 2, I'm not done yet. I have to take one of the equations. I'll take the first one. Now I take the x equals negative 2. I substitute back into the first equation. So wherever there's x, I replace it with negative 2. So now y comes down. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. So my final answer for y is negative 9. So this final answer, remember, system of equation is the answer is a point. So that's what it is. Okay, I'm going to move this up so that we can see the second equation here. I'll make my pen a little thinner, hopefully, so that I can write smaller. All right, in this equation, I already have the first step done. I solve for y. Y equals 6x. So then I call this equation 1, I call this equation 2. I'm going to take y equals 6x and then just dump it wherever there's y. So I dump it into the second equation, 2x plus 3y. I'm going to use parentheses. Y is 6x. See how I use the parentheses to provide my term? And really, this is exactly the same as what I wrote in red, except that now by this manipulation, I have only x terms in my equation. So if I expand that, oops, sorry, that should be blue. 2x plus 3 times 6 is 18x equals negative 20. I add the two together, I should have 20x together equals negative 20. If I divide both sides by 20, x should equal negative 1. And now I said take an easier one. Y equals 6x, plug in the negative 1 into x. You would have x equals negative 6. So your final answer for this one is negative 1, negative 6. All right. Try the third one on your own, which is exactly the same. And I'll do the fourth one, which is also the same. So pause the video, try the third one, then come back and do the fourth one with me. So the fourth one is also the same, except this time they solve the x for you. So I will call this first equation, and I call this second equation. Here is x. So then I just take whatever it is. If it's 2x, it's 2 parentheses minus 6y equals 12. That's the second equation. Now, rather than 2x, because x equals 4y plus 7, I just replace the x with 4y plus 7. And now my equation only has one variable. Remember distributive property, 2 times 4y is 8y, 2 times 7 is 14, minus 6y equals 12. Again, notice my equal signs are all lined up. Now, in this equation, I have 8y minus 6y. So I can simplify that on the left-hand side. So I should have 2y left. Let me change it to blue. 2y left plus 14 equals 12. And if I subtract 14 now, I should have 2y left. And then the plus 14 minus 14 cancels each other out. On the right-hand side, I have negative 2. And if I divide by 2 on both sides, I have y equals negative 1. And then I do the same thing. I plug it in. Oops, I'm sorry. That's an equal sign. Equals 4y plus 7. That's the first equation. I don't know my x. I just plug in my y. My y is negative 1. So I have 4 times negative 1 is negative 4 plus 7. And that gives me x equals 3. So my coordinate is 3, negative 1. That's when these two equations match up. Okay, they meet up, intersect. So now going back to number 3, if you did it correctly, your x should come out to be negative 7. Your y should be 2. Number 5. Number 5, try to find something that would help you to make life a little easier. Notice that I've got 2x, 5x in each of the equation, then I have 1y and 3y. So we can make our life easier if we take the first equation, 2x plus y equals negative 2. And if I just subtract 2x on both sides, guess what? I'm left with y. Negative 2x minus 2. And now if I call this 3, I just rewrote 1 into 3. Now I can take my second equation, 5x plus 3y equals negative 8. And I just plug in y equals negative 2x minus 2. From that point on, it's distributive property. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6x. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6 again. So if I combine like terms here, I would have negative x minus 6 equals negative 6. And if I plus 6 on both sides, I have negative x equals negative 2. And now if I divide negative 1 on both sides, my x comes out to be 2. And now if I go to my easier, smaller number equation, first equation, x is 2, so I plug in here. I'm solving for y because I don't know what y is. So now I have 4 plus y equals negative 2. Now I'm skipping a step. I subtract 4 on both sides. My y comes out to be 2 and negative 6. All right. Number 4 is exactly the same. I'm sorry, number 6, exactly the same. Number 7, so do number 6 on your own. Pause the video and come back and do number 7 with me. Number 7, notice here's the single x there. So I'm going to take advantage of that. X plus 5y equals 4. If I subtract 5y on both sides, I would have x equals negative 5y plus 4. Done. First step, right? Now I take this, that's the first equation. Now I take the second equation is 3x plus 15y. So I'm substituting for the x since I solved for x already. So x is negative 5y plus 4. And now if I distribute, I become negative 15y plus 12 plus positive 15y equals negative 1. Whoa, look at that. These two cancels each other. So I have a statement that 12 equals negative 1. And this we know does not exist. And therefore, there's no solution. We call it a null. So in what circumstances we don't have a solution of x and y? Is when the two lines are parallel. No solutions, right? So that's number 7. And let's go back to number 6. If you got number 6 right, the answer should be 2, 5. Okay. Number 8 is exactly the same. You should be able to do it on your own. I will write the answer key here, but you need to demonstrate to me that you know how to do these. And number 9, I will do number 9. It's the last one. The rest of them are all the same. So I'll do number 9 with you. Number 9, I have 6x plus 3y equals 54. And then I have x plus y equals 18. So I'm going to use the second one. I'll rewrite it. Notice that I always rewrite the equation. It's just easier to help me think. So I subtract 2x from both sides, and that's how I rewrote y equals negative plus 2x. Now I go back to the first one. I have 6x plus 3y equals 54. And I just put in wherever is y, I plug it right in. And then I use distributive property. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6x. 3 times 18 is 54, I think. Oh, there's a 54 on the other side. Notice that 6x minus 6x, that gives me 0. 0 plus 54 equals 54. And if I subtract 54 from both sides, I have 0 equals 0. What does that mean? That I cannot find a solution, or it doesn't matter what x and y is, I always have a true statement. In this case, my answer is infinity, right? In other words, they are the same line. So remember, we have 3 scenarios. We have a scenario where the two lines intersect. We have a second scenario where the two lines parallel but do not intersect, so there is no solution. In this case, these two lines overlap. They're exactly the same line, so there's an infinite number of solutions to this. Okay, so that's number 9. And finish the rest of the page, and I will write the answers here. And you should be able to arrive these answers. Please double check. All right, I will see you later, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.